Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Built Environment Marketing Show, hosted by me, Ayo Abbas. I am a marketer, speaker and trainer, and I work specifically with architects and engineers. If you want to find out more about me and my work, head to www.abbasmarketing.com. So today we have another special guest in this interview, and I am speaking to Tom Coupe. Tom has had an illustrious career in the architecture world, working mainly on the kind of communications leadership side. He now runs his own firm called Design Communication Training, and previously he has worked at practices including David Chipperfield Architects, Heatherwick Studio, and also Squint Opera, who, to be honest, I've always fangirled for a very, very long time. I love their stuff. Right. In today's episode, we talk about a topic we've not spoken about before: spoken communications. And we also look at confidence as well, and how important it is to kind of build that in our communication style. So today we are talking about spoken communications and how it can help firms to deal with clients, how it can help firms to build relationships, and also how it can help them in terms of their growth and winning more work. So it's a really, really fascinating, very practical interview that I hope you enjoy. So please do listen to the interview and let me know what you think. Take care. Bye. Hi, Tom. Thanks so much for coming onto the show. Can you introduce yourself and your role and what you do?
Hi, Ayo. Thank you so much for having me. I love this show, so it's great to be here. My name's Tom, and my background is architecture and communications, where they kind of cross over. So I've always been interested in both, and I've had all kinds of different roles in communications and in the kind of built environment and the creative industries. I'm now running a communications training company specifically for architects.
Okay, my first question is, do architects need communications help?
No, they're brilliant at it. I don't know why I'm doing it.
Okay, that's me being slightly sarcastic. But anyway, so what made you kind of transition from the kind of communications leader role in-house at an architectural firm to kind of doing your own thing and talking about spoken communications?
Well, I mean, way back when, I've always been interested in architecture. I didn't train in it, but my parents are both architects, so I've always been around it. I've always been interested in design in a wider perspective. And I was working at the Serpentine Gallery for a long time, and I got this amazing insight, this kind of little window on how communications works for architects. So that's what they have there is this yearly commission where they invite an architect that's never built in the UK before. I'm sure lots of your listeners know about it. My job there was to work with the visiting architects and get them in front of the press and run their comms for them. And I got this little yearly introduction to another awesome kind of global architectural superstar and how they did comms. And it was fascinating how different each of them were. And one thing that was really striking is how it wasn't just design that was impressive. It was their ability to talk about their work and their ability to adapt how they spoke about their work to whoever it was they were speaking to, that made the difference between whether they were well received and well understood or not. And the architecture, despite them coming in and actually building a physical building in 6 months, this amazing program where you go from concept at Christmas to opening in June, totally mental.
With a massive party all the time and a
massive
series of parties.
Yeah, I mean, but you got design, you got planning, you got construction, you got fundraising, and then you got it's all super condensed, but and great fun. But what that means is if you've got this super accelerated process and they have to think about it, they have to come up with a way of talking about it, and then you have to put them in front of 1 million people to actually present it. And whether that was Rem Koolhaas or Herzog de Meuron or Jean Nouvel or anyone like that, they all had their own style, and they were all fantastically good at about talking about their work. And that made me think, oh, not only do you need to be a great designer, you need to be a great communicator to get where some of these people have got to. And when I've been I spent a long time working in-house for some fantastic architects and designers, and that was really the enjoyable part of it, was not only just being a spokesperson, but helping designers think about what they're doing and translate what they're doing into something that's relevant to a super broad audience.
And I guess in some ways it's communicating ideas, right? Because that's what they have to do. They have to pull someone with them on that vision and that journey. And it's like, if you watch any Norman Foster's films, it's how he brings you in. Like, I remember watching recently the new Manchester United Stadium, and he's a master at it. Like,
yeah.
You sort of sit there and think, he's in his 90s, but my gosh, I didn't know anyone who could deliver a presentation like,
Yeah.
And it's true, right?
Yeah. I mean, storytelling is a massive part of it. You got to be a spokesperson or an advocate for your design until it's built. That's a big part of what an architect's role is, right? You in your head you can see it, but no one else can, and you can render it, or you can do visuals, but a lot of people don't respond as well as you think they're going to respond to visuals or even filmmaking. So you've got to talk about it. You've got to be able to tell a good story. And there are fundamentals of spoken storytelling which are super applicable to the designer role. And there are ways of learning it. And it's really quite simple. We're all kind of programmed to do it. You just got to focus on it for a minute and build up that skill.
So just take you back slightly. So what do you, when you were working with architectural practices, I mean, what kind of communications issues do you tend to see, or is there a kind of trend, or there's some kind of key themes that kind of come out?
When you're training to be an architect or any kind of professional services expert, you have your head down and you're learning a lot of technical information year after year, and you're becoming a technical expert and an analyst and a clear thinker. But architects particularly aren't really trained to communicate verbally their ideas in a simple way to non-architects. There's a lot of crit work in the training, which is about having your work analysed by other experts. So that's something that we get a lot of training in. But actually condensing it down and making it relevant and applicable and understandable by a wide group of stakeholders, be those public audience or planners or investors or even developers, don't necessarily speak design language. That's problem number one, right? Like, we're not used to doing the thing that GPs get trained to do. They actually get technical training on how to adapt their professional language for whoever it is walks through the surgery. Absolutely. So to barristers, this is something that professional services have thought about in other industries, right? You're going to come up against people who don't understand what you do, don't need to understand it, but they need to understand what it is you want them to know.
I was going to say, just before you go on, one of the best storytellers I've ever seen was a barrister. I was on jury service, and he did the best closing argument in 10 minutes I've ever seen. Like, literally, he had, the judge said to him, "You've got 10 minutes left before lunch," kind of thing. So he kept, he would stop his closing summary and go 10 minutes, 9 minutes, and kind of ticking time. He was brilliant. I was like, the thing is, I stopped listening because I was like, this is just an amazing piece of theatre. You know what I mean? But just absolutely amazing.
It is, and it's a technical skill, right? That's something you can get trained in, and it's not even that hard. You just got to give it a bit of thought and a bit of practice. And to be able to get to a level of expertise in design or in architecture, you're smart. You're already smart, right? You can do this if you're given a framework. And so that's what this training program is really about, is just some basic tools in how to prepare and how to think about who you're talking to and what it is you want to get across, how to do it quickly, how to do it efficiently, and how to do it in a way that builds trust and understanding. If you can build trust with the person you're speaking to, you've kind of pretty much won already, right?
Yeah, it's a huge thing. And so let's go into the framework a bit. So what does that kind of comprise of, or what kind of structure do you tend to take people through?
Well, when I was setting it up, so I thought, what is different in the design advocacy role than other roles? You know, how is spoken communication different in the architecture role? And I thought about all those different challenges. And in fact, I did this really enjoyable kind of talking around, going to, I don't know, probably at 50 or so firms, talking to them about the challenges that they have, and got it down to a series of basic skills that are needed in any mid-senior design role, and that worked out into a program now, which is 8 workshops, each one focusing on a slightly different theme and a slightly different kind of scenario. So we start with the most important thing is audience. That's where we start. It's amazing how many people you come across who say, oh, I don't really feel like I need to think about the person I'm speaking to, because I've done all of the thinking in the design. The design should be able to speak for itself. I just introduce it. And that just doesn't cut it, right? Like, you're a service provider, and if you can't adapt to this person you're speaking to, they're going to go find someone who can, and
they'll just shut down. That's how you lose a client or a conversation, right?
Yeah.
Someone's just talking at me.
It might stop you winning it in the first place. I mean, that your ability to make a connection with your audience is most acutely important in the business winning stage, right? I mean, if you can't make a connection in the sale, then you may well not get the work at all. But let's say you do win it, or someone else has won it for you. Now you've got to build a connection with the person. You might be working with a client for 5-6 years. This is a long-term relationship, and you've got to put some effort into it. So thinking about audience, and then thinking about there are a few basic storytelling and messaging techniques that can be drawn in, and we use examples of live design projects that people are working on to actually do messaging workshops in the room, as it were, as part of a workshop, helping people simplify the way that they speak about a particular project. So we go through that. We do audience, we do messaging, we do storytelling, we do negotiation, handling criticism, body language, all of these different elements that add up to a toolbox of basic but really, really necessary face-to-face communication skills to get people to say yes to your project.
Is that it? Say yes to my project, please.
Yeah. It's persuasion. That's what it is. It's like talking persuasively about architecture. That's what it is.
It is. That's fascinating, because it is one of those where you think, oh, this is all really obvious. I mean, I guess none of it is like seriously like, but it's common sense. But actually, you need people to point it out to you how it's done, don't you? And how it all fits together and works as a cohesive whole.
And
right?
I think that's what I've learned about working on skills development with smart adults rather than any other educational kind of format, or working with kids or whatever. But they need to be able to instantly go and apply it. So there's no point trying to teach anyone something that they're not going to need until next year or the year after. It's got to be immediately. How do I handle a difficult conversation with a client? How do I cope? How do I plan for an important presentation? How do I plan a phone call? People are terrified of phone calls. Younger professionals haven't grown up in the, I'm now nearly 50, and I grew up, I started working in a world where everything was done on the phone. And it's still such an important skill to be able to pick up the phone. And in terms of relationship management, it is important. We can't only get by the, video calling or whatever. So it's skills like that, instantly useful skills. That's what this is about. And so you've got to be able to make it immediately relevant and make it fun. People have got to want to come to these workshops. And no one's forcing them there, right? They've got to feel that it's instantly valuable. So building a fun and enjoyable and relevant training environment is really important.
Are you a practice leader who isn't getting the industry profile that you deserve? I often hear from practices who do brilliant work but aren't actually getting the visibility they need to get business through the door. Practices that influence the sector aren't necessarily the best at design. They're often better at positioning their expertise and getting it seen and valued by those with budgets. I'm Ayo Abbas, and for 24 years I've helped leading built environment firms build the recognition and authority that their expertise deserves. Drop me a line at ayo@abbasmarketing.com, which is AYO at ABBASmarketing.com, to set up a call where we can talk about how I can help you get a strategy and plan in place to get you to where you deserve to be. Do you find that architects, once you've kind of trained them, do they feel a lot more confident? Or how's this whole thing about, how do they build their confidence and start to kind of take it out into their kind of day-to-day? How do you kind of, empower them in a way?
By the time you've done all of that training, you're already practicing, you're already in a firm, you're already giving exciting projects to work on. There's a lot there to feel proud of and feel confident about. But actually speaking about your work in an unplanned way, that's the funny thing about face-to-face communications, right? You can't really fully plan it. No. You can't go in with a sheet of paper and
here's my talking points, and I shall be saying to your students.
That doesn't work anymore.
Over the wine in the bar. No. I'm here.
And that's why we default to emails way too much, right? Because it's a much more managed communication tool, but it's way overused. And face-to-face communications is way better at building trust and understanding. So your question was about how do you build confidence, right?
Yeah.
So the whole framework of this training is basically based on the idea that if you allow a smart professional to see the workings a little bit, just see the matrix of how you do it, they'll have that confidence. Okay, this is not a magic tool that only that person over there who's brilliant at it and seems to do it in their sleep, and I can't do it. What's the magic? If you can see that actually what they're doing is just using maybe 7-8 basic techniques. If you've understood the techniques, you can take them apart a little bit and say messaging just simply works like this. There's 4 things to remember. Storytelling, that it's a basic structure of the same thing over and over and over and over again. For thousands of years, it hasn't changed. If you take it apart, let them see it, demystify, that is the confidence building, right? You can now go into an unplanned situation thinking, oh yeah, well, I know what I'm doing. And also, half of what we do is simple preparation tools for difficult conversations, right? Like, actually, what can you do in advance? Not writing yourself a script, but putting yourself in the other person's shoes, thinking about their pressure points, what it is they care about, what do they worry about, what are the most important things that they might be interested in, what's the bit of information that they need right up the top of the conversation, say that bit first, de-stress the rest of the conversation. Those kind of basic techniques. So it's about providing confidence through simple, memorable structure. That's what it is. I was speaking to someone in a workshop the other day, and I just asked the question, well, how do you cope in a conversation where your client asks you questions you don't know the answer to? Mm. Yeah, because that's going to happen, right? It's going to happen all the time.
You can't know everything. There's no way.
Can't know everything. And this person said, I just make sure that doesn't happen. And I said, oh, what do you mean? And she said, well, I just prepare absolutely every question that I could ever get asked. Can you imagine how much work is going into?
That's exhausting. Like,
oh my God. Oh my God, it's like, okay, we can help. I can save you quite a lot of time here.
Because the way my mind works, I would have like 150 questions to pray. I wouldn't be meeting anyone. Another question. Right. No.
But that's born out of a feeling of the need to be able to answer every single question.
Yeah.
And if you can get it into someone's head, there are ways of being able to say, I don't have the answer without losing credibility. Then you de-stress that so much, and you're much more likely to be able to go into that conversation and relax, cope with ambiguity, cope with unplanned communication, and probably you'll be able to come up with an answer if you're less stressed.
Because it's quite interesting, because I always think there's that element. I mean, if you deal with a project, there's always an element of unknowns. You don't know until you're on site, right? There is always that. And I think when you think about clients, it's like, there's no reason you can't say, I don't know the answer. I'll come back to you, make a note of it, and come back to them. And then it's like, I respect you for that. And I think that's what people are worried about, right?
Yeah. And sometimes it's as simple as just pointing that out, right? Like that, despite you being in an expert role, it's impossible to know everything. And there are ways of articulating the fact that you don't know something that doesn't damage your credibility.
But I guess that's also draws us straight back to confidence again, right?
Yeah.
Confidence in your authority to actually be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
And it all kind of boils into that, doesn't it?
One of the reasons I did this is because I've seen from inside, really big, growth businesses, successful growth businesses, the pressure where you have too few people doing this, too few people running the important relationships, whether those are clients or investors or whatever. Going through the process of training up that next level of people who should be able to run projects, should be able to run client relationships, is a way of releasing the possibility for growth, right?
Yeah.
If you've got one person running all of the projects, running all of the client relationships, there's only so many projects you can have.
And if something happens to that one person, right?
Yeah, so it's a business risk, but it's also a limit on growth. So that was a little bit one of the other kind of push factors for me, thinking about what can we do here to broaden this skill base, because it's not something that should be concentrated. It really should be. Once you've got the technical ability to run a project, you should be able to run a project, right? You should be able to run those relationships, and there's no reason why relationship management is something that is separate from the other technical skills.
And also, it shouldn't be something that just sits at the top of an organisation, because when you start to think about it, I mean, some of the most kind of impressive CRM kind of relationship management I've seen in firms is when it's like actually when it's done for like junior level. So they work with their peers and they know how to communicate. And then as they come up the ranks, and you've got these really strong relationships that have been literally going for like 10, 15 years. And that's so powerful. Yeah. And I think it's just kind of giving people those tools, which are so important for work and for life, really, right?
Yeah. It's always nice when someone comes back to work and says, "Oh, I tried that technique out on my partner the other day."
Look, I'm married now.
It's like
it's really works.
You protected my interest in those negotiations. Great.
That sounds good. Did you get extra payment for this? Or?
Yeah, I need to have some kind of other remuneration there, don't I? Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. So When it comes to teams presenting as a whole, and how do you orchestrate that? What advice do you give to teams in terms of their kind of communications as a group? So if I was going to a large project presentation or something.
Yeah. So I suppose we focus mostly in the course on communication out from within to non-designers. When I've been in-house, we've spent a lot of time on internal communications, and that's of course really important. It's more about I think the more immediate value that we can add in these skills is things where we're either winning new work or creating more efficient interchange between you and your clients, or working on those that skill development where you're actually providing the scope for growth in a business.
Yeah. So when you're going out, have those meetings to talk about what you could be doing together and all that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think I read some research recently which was saying basically we're getting to a stage now where there's going to be 5 generations in a practice, which is massive. Yeah. And also all those different communication styles, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And being able to communicate across difference and across levels of seniority, and one of the big ones, of course, is language. I'm working with clients who have whatever it is, 20 or something different languages spoken, first languages spoken by staff. And if you're working with international firms, then their clients could be from anywhere in the world, and could have any first language. And so that's when the ability to be clear and precise, but also concise with your language is so important. I was talking to an architect who's a Spanish architect working in Holland with a German manager and a Chinese client, and in English. English is the lingua franca of that relationship. And that's, you think, wow, what a challenge just to get yourself understood, let alone the subtleties that you want to get into your language, over a long, complex project. So there's real challenges there, and the things that we can do there are about the complex to the simple, all of those exercises that you can do to pull out the important information, and to analyze the way that you speak to remove barriers to understanding. And those are simple things to do, but they become super, super important when the person you're speaking to has a weaker understanding of your shared.
And is that something you do overtly, or is just something you have in the back of your mind? Do you know what I mean? So if you had that, I would say a smorgasbord of different kind of nationalities, personalities, language, is that something you kind of just, as long as you've got it in the back of your mind, actually, how do they like to communicate? How does...
No. You should be doing it overtly, absolutely. I mean, you should be thinking about who it is you're speaking to, what they're interested in, what their level of understanding is, of the material, but also the level of understanding of the language, and adapting to suit that. And you should be doing that consciously in every situation, particularly if that's a long-term relationship or a high-frequency relationship that you're going to be needing to speak to them regularly. And that's why I have to keep saying, to architects, to keep saying, this is part of the job, right? It's not just designing. It's not just project management. It's putting effort into structuring how you speak about your work is part of the job. And the more you can do it, the more likely you are to have a productive relationship, get approvals quickly, less wasted work, less being sent back for revisions that are unnecessary. You just haven't presented them well. More likely to get your ideas signed off and eventually built.
So I've got 2 final questions. First one is, so how do you, especially I guess in the current climate where everyone's kind of budgets are being a bit squeezed, all that kind of stuff. How do you convince kind of, senior partners and architects that actually this is something worth investing in rather than a nice to have?
Well, some firms will simply see it as a nice to have.
Yeah.
Then that's less interesting to work for them, to be honest.
Yeah.
When I set out, I kind of said to myself, I'm only going to work with good designers or great designers, because
so you've got your shortlist.
Yeah, that's my shortlist, and because what I'm trying to do is help people get stuff built, and there's a lot of awful architecture out there, right? And there really is. I mean, Come on, is there? There really
yes,
is.
there is. I'm nodding. I am nodding. And then you're like, ooh. Anyway.
I don't really want to help them get that built. I want to help. We're in urgent need of great design in the built environment. Urgent need of great design. And what I'm trying to do is help great designers get their stuff built, right? So I find that the people who really care about their ability to understand a brief, understand a client, to get to the knot of a problem rather than just splurge out design, they already see this value. They already understand this value.
Because they go deep already.
Yeah. And so it's kind of self-selecting to an extent. And so that's great. And yes, I can make an argument for efficiency, less wasted time, all the rest of it. But in the long run, if they're not investing in skills of their people, in professional services in general in this country, broadly, we spend between £2,000 and £3,000 per person per year on skills development. I don't think the architecture world is spending anything like that.
No, I've never heard of that budget.
No, exactly. But if you go sideways into professional services, into finance and law and all the rest of it, then that is the standard. That's not necessarily possible for some of the smaller firms. Nevertheless, if there is an interest and a perception of value in doing that, then communications it's not much of an argument it's not that much of a difficult argument to say one of these important skills is being able to make these connections with your audience.
So what would advice on that, you said about smaller firms, so what advice, my final question, would you give to growing practices or smaller practices about how they can kind of, I guess, improve their communication skills, spoken communication?
Just talk about it, right? Like, talk to each other. It's like, if you don't focus on it, what happens is you get mimicry. You get younger team members saying, "Oh, well, that partner, she speaks like this, so I should probably speak like that too. Like, I'm just going to copy the way the boss does it." That doesn't work. Never works. You've got to develop your own. Everyone has to develop their own style. So don't copy, but also think about listening as a skill. Is really, really simple, and it's free, and you don't need training in it. You just got to think about it. Listen harder is like one of the most important things, and almost every architect could, as a little wrap up, work on being a little more concise.
Do you know what's really funny? On the 17th of June, I'm on a panel for Rachel Birchmore and Emma Kite. They're doing a thing called the Listening Project. And I'm one of the panelists on it. Yeah. So that is a fantastic ending to that. So thank you so much for the conversation, Tom, and for coming onto the show.
Oh, it's been great fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to the Built Environment Marketing Show. Don't forget to check out the show notes, which will have useful links and resources connected to this episode. You can find that on abbasmarketing.com. And of course, if you like the show, please do share it with others on social, as it helps more people to find us. See you soon.